out of the frying pan and into the fire. That's what Mio thought when her father announced that she will be married off to a man who was rumored to be cold and cruel and who'd already chased away several other fiancé candidates before her. But Mio has nowhere else to go. She's the oldest daughter of the Saimori house, but she's treated like a servant. Kaya, her younger stepsister, mocks her, her stepmother scorns her, and her father ignores her. But this Cinderella gets the shock of her life when she arrives to her new home and lays eyes upon her husband-to-be. He is far from welcoming. Kiyoka Kudo's cold welcome makes it absolutely clear. What he says goes, and should she displease him, she can expect to be immediately kicked out. Mio obediently accepts his words with nary a word of protest, since that's the kind of treatment she's come to expect from others. But this meekness surprises her husband-to-be. Yurie, the good woman, does her best and tries to put in a word for her master, but she really has nothing to worry about. Mio has nowhere else to go, and is just grateful that she wasn't thrown out already, especially since she doesn't have the spirit sight. All she can hope for is that she might be of some use to her future husband. Thus, she begins her new life in her new home. She gets up early to make breakfast the next morning. However, her plan to be useful backfires as Kiyoka refuses to take a bite, accusing her of trying to poison him. However, at work he can't get over the incident and his mind continues to circle back to the morning's events. When he returns home to a deeply apologetic Mio, he decides to give things another go. What's more, he also apologizes to her for his earlier treatment and asks to eat her food for breakfast the next day. When he does eat her food, he compliments it, which causes Mio to tear up because she can't even remember the last time she had ever been complimented. This, together with her far too subservient demeanor, her malnourished state, and her threadbare kimono, is puzzling to Kiyoka, and he decides to investigate her past. But what will he do when he finds out about Mio's life in the Saimori household? And if he learns that she is not gifted, will Mio's greatest fear come true, and will she find herself dismissed? Kiyoka invites Mio on their first date to go shopping in town. However, Mio is awkward since she has no idea what to do and all she wants is to just not be a bother. Remembering that Yurie told him about Mio mending her own clothes, Kiyoka secretly commissions a kimono. Meanwhile, at the Saimori residence, Minoru is still furious to have lost Mio Usuba's bloodline, but is assured when he is told that once Mio is rejected by Kiyoka, his family can take her. Although she is thankful for Kiyoka's kindness, Mio decides to hide her lack of spiritual gift in case Kiyoka abandons her. Kiyoka gifts Mio a comb, a significant gesture because it is a definite sign that he is making a proposal to her. Additionally, Kiyoka also receives details from the investigation into the Saimori family, where he is horrified to learn about the abuse that she has endured at home, but also learns of her lack of a gift and her relation to the Usuba family. The episode ends with him returning home, but not before destroying several shikigami, magical items that someone sent out to spy on him. In return for the comb that Kiyoka gave her, Mia was determined to reciprocate with a gift, so she happily goes into the city with Yurie to buy some materials to make him a handmade gift. While Mio is out in the city enjoying herself, she bumps into Kaya, who begins to taunt and torment her. Whatever spark of life there had been in Mio is now effectively extinguished. Mio is quiet and withdraws into herself for the rest of the day. Kiyoka and Yurie try to help, but Mio remains in her room until a friendly face from her past comes to visit her. It's Hana, the woman who had been her sole support when she had been a child. Hana asks her how she's been, and Mio breaks down in tears and confesses it all. She can't be happy, not when she knows that she's unworthy to be Kiyoka's wife. Hana comforts her, saying that the reason she's there in the first place is because Kiyoka wrote to her, which means that if he knows about Hana, a person from Mio's past, he must also know about Mio's circumstances, and encourages her to open up to Kiyoka. Thus empowered, Mio confesses the truth about her circumstances, confessing that she had hidden it all out of shame. She says she will do whatever he wants, even if he tells her to leave or to die. But she asks to first express her thanks to him, finally giving him the gift that she worked on, a braided hair cord. Kiyoka accepts her gift and reassures her, saying that he intends for them to be a couple for real. They hug, and Mio declares that she wants to stay with him. All is well in the world. Or is it? As the Japanese saying goes, the ground hardens after it rains, and after last episode, things are going wonderfully for Mio. She has received a bunch of beautiful new kimonos, and after meeting with her old maid Hana, she also gets to have other guests over, this time being Godo, Kiyoka's co-worker. When Kiyoka sees Mio wearing the cherry blossom kimono he chose for her, he is enthralled by her beauty, which causes the incorrigible Godo to poke fun at him all evening long. However, despite these positive developments, trouble is brewing. First off, something is definitely wrong with Mio. Her nightmares have gone beyond just dreams of the past and have turned into horrifying visions. Kiyoka happens to be around while she's asleep, and he detects magical power, which makes him, and us, wonder if perhaps Mio does have some kind of latent powers of her own. Additionally, Koji's father enlists the cooperation of the detestable Kaya in an effort to take Mio from Kiyoka. It's an odd partnership, but it just so happens that their interests align. For Kaya, who is unable to bear the fact that her sister made a better match than hers, now wants to take Kiyoka for herself. Their plan is far from foolproof, but they think it's the greatest one ever and execute it nevertheless. While Koji watches on in horror and angrily confronts his father. However, he's unable to stop Tatsuishi and ends up overpowered by the older man's superior strength and experience. And so, on a sunny day, while on an outing with Yurie to deliver Kiyoka a bento, Mio is kidnapped, leaving behind a distressed woman who runs back to Kiyoka and informs him of what happened. Just as Kiyoka is wondering where Mio could be, Koji, who was freed from his bonds by his older brother, runs in and begs his help in rescuing Mio. While Koji and a deceptively calm-looking Kiyoka made their way to Mio's house, Mio herself wakes up in the old storage room located in the Saimori's estate, whereupon both her stepsister and her stepmother try to force her to agree to give up on her engagement with Kiyoka. Kaya tries to intimidate her using sharp objects, threatening to not just ruin her pretty clothes, but also threatening to slice her throat, while the stepmother beats Mio across the face repeatedly, even going so far as kicking her. But Mio, despite being terrified and battered, is determined to cling on to Kiyoka and the happiness she has found with him. Meanwhile, Kiyoka uses lightning to blast through the gates of the Saimori house and demands to know Mio's location. Koji is about to show him the way, but the two are confronted by the Saimori and Tatsuishi patriarchs, who try to launch attack after attack to block their way, but are easily rebuffed by Kiyoka's superior strength. Koji's father is so desperate to keep Mio for himself that he sends out a torrent of fire after Kiyoka, and while Kiyoka manages to block it, the rest of the estate is not so lucky and catches fire. Meanwhile, Kaya is so frustrated by Mio's refusal to give up on Kiyoka that she begins to choke Mio. Just before Mio blacks out, however, Kiyoka swoops in to rescue her and carries her away from that horrible place. Stepmother realizes her house is burning and yells in despair, while Kaya is harshly rebuffed when she presents herself as Mio's replacement. Kiyoka says that he'd never, ever take her as his wife before tenderly carrying Mio home and away from the burning ruins of her old family home. The Saimori house has burned down, forcing Mio's father and his wife to retire to the countryside, while Kaya is being dispatched to work in a famously strict household. Karma certainly has its way, doesn't it? While I would have liked for a more violent end to these people, the relief lies in knowing that Mio is now unburdened from their torment and she can stride into a future untroubled by dangers or complications and... oh boy, okay, who are we kidding? Maybe the Saimoris were the least of Mio's problems. The horizon remains shadowed with ominous elements between Mio's unsettling nightmares, the cryptic pronouncements of an aged emperor, his collaboration with someone audacious enough to vie for Mio, and the unsettling events unveiled in this episode. A blissful and happy ending may still be a ways away. But Mio is looking forward to the future. Now that she is officially engaged to Kiyoka, she's eager to develop herself and is taking lessons from Kiyoka's delightful older sister. And while this episode was a bittersweet end to a painful chapter in Mio's life, it also is the start of a new, albeit slightly uncertain one. We're starting off this new arc with a bang. Literally, the seal on the graves of the gifted has been broken, releasing all kinds of grotesqueries out into the world, and it falls to Kiyoka and his men to deal with the cleanup. While he is busy with the Emperor's son, bossing around the Tatsuishi's new head of household, fighting off monsters and handling pesky newcomers that give off all kinds of icky vibes, he is also working behind the scenes to find the secretive Usuba clan in an effort to get to the bottom of Mio's relentless nightmares. Meanwhile, Mio is on her own personal quest to become a proper lady, making steady progress thanks to Hozuki. It's challenging work, and she's doing everything she can to power through the constant exhaustion that comes from not getting enough sleep due to the nightmares that plague her every night. However, during an outing in the city, she almost collapses from heat and exhaustion, only to be saved from falling by a stranger who, creepily enough, calls her by name. After almost collapsing out in the streets, Mio's condition continues to deteriorate, much to everyone's consternation. Kiyoka is worried, but he has a lot on his plate. The grotesqueries are now near human settlements, and it is feared that they will soon reach the capital. He's also following any leads he can on Mio's mother in an effort to locate the Usubas, finding a crucial link that ties her to Arata's family. And try as he might to encourage Mio to talk about her problems, she continues to suffer in silence and wastes away right in front of his eyes. In the middle of it all, this Arata guy is stirring up trouble. First, he makes his way to Kiyoka's house, like the creep he is, and proceeds to criticize Kiyoka and his treatment of Mio, leaving with her his contact information. Not content with that, he also antagonizes Kiyoka. In each instance, he perfectly manages to strike where it hurts the most. For Mio, it's that bad rumors about Kiyoka will soon spread because of her, and that she'll cause him more pain. For Kiyoka, is that he doesn't know enough to help Mio, nor can he be by her side when she's suffering the most. This all comes to a head that night when Kiyoka returns home. Their argument ends up with her collapsing and with him deeply regretful for having been so harsh. Finding that Mio has Arata's card, he crumples it into his hand and decides to face him head on and get the answers that he seeks, taking Mio along with him. After their argument, a desperate Kiyoka takes Mio to visit the Usubas so he can get to the bottom of things and find out once and for all how to help Mio with her reoccurring nightmares. There he's greeted by Mio's cousin Arata and their grandfather. Going into the house, the Usubas demand that Kiyoka give Mio back, but Kiyoka refuses. Mio wilts when they ask her point blank what she thinks, and this leads the men to fight a duel over her. After an impressive display of powers, Kiyoka unfortunately loses as Arata pulls a cheap trick. With that, Kiyoka and Mio are separated. A defeated Kiyoka is scolded by Hazuki, and after she talks sense to him, he decides to win Mio back, no matter what. That is, as soon as he deals with the worsening grotesquerie situation, which is grave indeed and puts him in danger. Meanwhile, Mio spends her days listlessly in the Usuba house, where she learns the nature of her gift. Then, when she touches the cherry tree, she learns how and why her mother sealed Mio's power away to protect her from being exploited by the Saimori. There, Mio comes to a better understanding of what family means. She also reclaims her power through the magical tree. Soon after this, Arata brings news that Kiyoka was brought down during one of the anti-grotesquerie missions. Mio wants to run off and be with him, but Arata stops her, saying that it's not just her family that wants to keep her and Kuro away, but it is also the will of the Emperor, and defying him will result in grave punishment. Still, Grandfather Usuba gives them their blessing, and Arata rushes Mio to Kiyoka's side, where he is unconscious. Mio is sad, but Arata explains that there is a way where she might be able to help, if she's willing. With Kiyoka down and unconscious after battling the grotesqueries, it is now up to Mio to rescue Kiyoka and free him from the strange, nightmarish world where he is trapped. But this task forces her to confront her deepest insecurities. Surprisingly, her most formidable adversary isn't her unkind family or the scheming emperor. It is her own nagging sense of inadequacy and the fear that her efforts will never be sufficient. Despite these daunting internal struggles, Mio resolves not to flee, but to face her fears head-on. Her determination is twofold: to save Kiyoka and to remain by his side, determined to find happiness together. Armed with great resolve and with her powerful gift, Mio reaches Kiyoka and single-handedly vanquishes the malevolent forces that threatened him. The truth becomes clear: the Emperor is the mastermind behind it all, seeking to eliminate Kiyoka and Mio, whom he perceives as his adversaries. However, Mio not only defends herself and Kiyoka, but also manages to fight back even the Emperor's formidable powers. Once their adversary is defeated, Mio and Kiyoka reconcile and dispel their misunderstandings. The voices of their loved ones eventually draw them back to the real world, and they awake to find their friends who are joyous to see them back. Arata quietly disappears, but not before Mio expresses her decision to return home with Kiyoka. Furthermore, the Emperor's son appears ready to assume command, as his father has lost his divine revelation and is rendered unfit to rule. Mio and Kiyoka return home to their quiet routine and their blissful life. Mio's nightmares become a thing of the past, and the days pass gently. After some time, they attend a party where Mio appears as a poised and beautiful young woman, leaving Kiyoka awestruck. As they stroll to the venue, they reaffirm their desire to get married and share their lives moving forward, determined to face the future side by side. There's an extra OVA episode, which was released in March of 2024. It picks up right where we left off in episode 12. Mio is at the party with Kiyoka. There, Hazuki introduces Mio to her son, who seems to dislike Mio at first. After Mio converses with the guests, Kiyoka brings her to meet the crown prince. Takahito explains the real reason why his father, the emperor, was involved in the incidents between the Saimoris and the Usubas. When he apologizes to Mio for everything that happened to her, she just tells him that she's happy to be with Kiyoka. After the conversation with him, Mio bumps into Asahi. When he confesses that he is jealous of Mio because she spends too much time with his mother, Hazuki reassures her son that she loves him. As a result, Asahi apologizes to Mio for his behavior. Another fun detail that we learn here in this episode is the identity of Hazuki's ex-husband. And honestly, I never would have expected it, but I like it. He's a decent fellow. The next day, Arata comes to visit Kiyoka and Mio to make a proposal of becoming Mio's bodyguard. Soon after, Mio watches Kiyoka leave for work as she hopes for their happiness. As someone who was new to My Happy Marriage, I found Season 1 to be extremely well done. After all, it's a story that's more than just a romance. It's a story about resilience, healing, and the power of unconditional love. Mio's journey reminds us that no matter how broken we feel, we can find our own happiness when we allow ourselves to be seen and cherished for who we truly are. If you haven't watched it yet, this is your chance to experience this touching story for yourself. You can also check out my individual episode by episode summaries. Until next time, bye bye.